Good morning, Jim.
Good morning, Jet.
All right, tough loss for the Gopher football team last night in their season opener as they get beat by North Carolina by a final score of 19-17. They had a missed field goal, 47-yarder as time expired that would have won it for them. Your thoughts on last night's Gopher loss?
Yeah, a couple missed field goals made a big difference in the game. Obviously, North Carolina's kicker was fantastic. You hate to see a football game come down to kickers. It kind of did last night, but it came down to kickers because neither offense was very good, frankly. I thought Brosmer started playing much better fourth quarter when they really had to throw the ball. He started throwing some really nice passes. Seemed to get something going with Jackson. So maybe this is something he can build on. He has a couple of non-conference games now to kind of work through this stuff. He looked either nervous or overmatched early in the game, but at least he showed some signs of life late. I think they missed Darius Taylor. Major had a pretty good game, but I think Taylor would have done a lot more with the holes that he was given. He was out with a hamstring injury. Defense is okay, but I didn't think North Carolina. Well, I didn't think North Carolina's quarterback play was very good. I will say that Max Johnson ended up with what looked like a very severe injury. Max, the son of Brad Johnson, who one of my favorite Vikings of all time, somebody I stayed in touch with for a long time, one of the best people I've covered. So I feel terrible for him and his family. Brad was in the stands last night. But, injury aside, the Gophers were facing a team that did not have very good quarterback play, and they just didn't take advantage of it.
So you mentioned Brosmer, and Brosmer in the second half, fourth quarter, yeah, it did seem like he got a little bit more comfortable. Was there a speed adjustment that, was – because in the first half, especially the first quarter, he looked like kind of deer in the headlights a little bit.
He did. He looked overwhelmed early on, and then, sometimes it happens. Sometimes the best thing that can happen to a quarterback is to go into a 2-minute drill or have to play from behind or have to play some desperation. You just cut it loose. You don't worry about mistakes so much, and it's kind of the catch-22 of playing quarterback. You can't afford to make mistakes, but if you think about not making mistakes, you're not going to function. Maybe just the desperation situation, maybe getting more comfortable. He did play better, but you can't have a quarterback just play well in those situations. You got to play well all game. But he is new to this level. There's no reason not to give him some time and see if he can adapt.
Do we know if Taylor will be back next week?
They do not. PJ Fleck does not tell us anything about injuries, so we'll know when we know.
How about the defense? What do you think about the defense?
Well, I think the defense. I think they have a pretty good front seven, and Wiley made a really nice interception, a big return. That could have been the turning point of the game if they had played better on offense. They did get a touchdown out of that. I thought the defense looked pretty good, but I also don't. I was not impressed with North Carolina's passing offense. Maybe we'll find out as the season goes on that was because of the Gophers' defense, but it looked to me like it's just not a very good offense.
How about Daniel Jackson? What do you think about him as the top receiver?
He's a nice player, and he's a nice player. He played well last night, coming back from an injury, and they're going to need him. He's clearly their number one.
How about the other receiving options? Are there other guys that were intriguing, at least to you?
There are other guys who made plays. Nobody really, I don't know if there's anybody really jumped out at me. To me, it's such a big separation between number one. I guess Spencer had a couple plays. I don't know. To me, Jackson's the only guy who really flashed.
So they got Rhode Island next, and then the following game is against Nevada. Should those be wins?
Should be, yes. And so, you're looking at it, and they should be, and they really have to be, because then, good Lord, then it's Iowa here, at Michigan, USC here, and then at UCLA. I don't know if UCLA is great, but Iowa, Michigan, and USC will be major challenges. So, there's a real chance of them being, even if they beat Rhode Island, Nevada, there's a real chance of them being 2-4 at that point, or 2-5 at that point.
All right, Jim. So in the North Dakota State game, it was Colorado that won that one 31-26. It was really a back-and-forth, high-scoring affair, but NDSU came up short. Your thoughts on that game?
Yeah, Colorado has 4 or 5 players who are just incredible talents. Shedeur Sanders is a tremendous college quarterback. Hunter's a great player. Horn makes big plays all over the place. They have high-end talent. I don't think they have depth. I don't think they have the kind of line play that will allow them to really do particularly well against bigger schools. But they had enough just raw talent to beat NDSU.
What do you think about Deion Sanders? Will he stay there after his son's done playing?
I don't know. He seems to really enjoy coaching and being a big deal and being the center of, he is the big man on campus there. I mean, he is a huge celebrity there. But he doesn't like dealing with anybody who doesn't kiss his ring. And I don't know that he's going to be able to win there. And will his ego be able to handle it if if his son's gone and he doesn't have a winning team, what would he keep doing it for? Maybe, I don't know. Money is always a nice thing. And boy, if you're a popular college football coach in a town like Boulder, you can live a heck of a life. But my suspicion is once his sons are gone that he will tire of the job.
Is he a good coach?
I don't know. It's hard to tell because if he didn't have, part of college football coaching is getting good players. So I'm not going to knock him for attracting good players, including his own sons. But what's recruiting going to look like for him when he doesn't have his own family to recruit from? What would that team look like without guys named Sanders on it? Shedeur Sanders is a tremendous player. So I don't know. I think the jury's still out. I mean, listen, very smart football player, highly intelligent guy. So I'm guessing he is a good coach. He's a hard guy to evaluate in his current circumstance.
Do you think Shedeur Sanders will translate into a good NFL quarterback?
Boy, it looks like it. I mean, arm talent, composure, athletic ability, accuracy, charisma, toughness. He seems to have it all.
Jim, the Twins start a 3-game series at home against Toronto tonight. They've lost 4 in a row. They're 3.5 games out of first, 2 games back at Kansas City for second place. Your thoughts on how important this series is against the Blue Jays?
Well, I mean, we're just at the time of year we're all in their circumstances. Every game is important. All these losses have been important. Turning it around fast is important. But, when we tend to just focus on the local team, and sometimes we ignore the fact that, there's so many variables. I mean, Cleveland could get hot, Cleveland could fall apart. The Royals could get hot, they could fall apart. I mean, the Red Sox could get hot, the Red Sox could fall apart. I mean, the Twins could play well and not be able to keep up, or the Twins could play lousy and eke in because nobody else is playing well. They just don't know how anybody's going to play, So the Twins just have to take care of their own business and start winning series again. If they do that, high probability they'll be in the playoffs. And if they get going in the right direction, get Correa and Buxton back and get Royce Lewis rolling again, there's a chance they could win the division and be a tough out in the playoffs. It's just everything's in play right now. Anything could happen.
Jim, is Brooks Lee going to be back first?
Yeah, he's the closest, no doubt about it. He actually has played well at St. Paul. They just didn't want to call him up until they were sure he's 100% healthy and really ready to go. That could be today. It could be the next 4 days. Julian has just not played well. He's been bad in the field, not taking good enough at bats to really make up for that. Not that you can ever make up for playing, throwing the ball in the left field on a double play. He also seems to be in his own head. Lavelle on our podcast has pointed out he doesn't think that Julian's been running hard out of the box, which is a terrible sign in a pennant race. So I would like to see Brooks Lee here today if possible.
Jim, the Minnesota Lynx play at Dallas tonight. Lynx have been rolling here lately. Do they have enough time to get the 1 seed? I mean, they're 2.5 games back of New York. Is that still within reach?
I mean, they have 8 or 9 games left, so it's mathematically possible. It's certainly not likely, but the 2 seed would be a heck of a get, But listen, they're on a 7-game winning streak. They're going for they're playing like they want the number 1 seed. I just don't know if the Liberty can lose enough in the next 9 games for that to be possible.
I know the Lynx beat them at least once this year when they won that Commissioner's Cup. Is there a tiebreak? Would they have the tiebreak?
I haven't looked that up, and they also have to play each other again, I believe. So whatever the tiebreaker situation is right now, it will change.
Jim, the Vikings have a new quarterback, Brett Rippon, who has been kind of a journeyman in the NFL. He's bounced around quite a bit. They sign him. They let Jaron Hall go. Thoughts on that?
By the way, the Lynx play at New York September 15th. That could be a really big. In fact, the Lynx have a very easy schedule for a while here, with the maybe exception of Indiana. And then they play at New York and at Connecticut September 15th and 17th, and the two next to last games of the season. Those could be really big for seeding and everything else. Rippon is better and more experienced than Jaron Hall right now. And because of the way last year went with having to go through all those quarterbacks, they'd rather have somebody who can function in an NFL game. Rippon has a better chance of doing that. They're hoping today that Hall will clear waivers and they can put him on their practice squad. They want to keep him in the organization. They just didn't necessarily want to see him on the field this year.
Did they see anything from Hall in the preseason that at least makes them think there's a future for him?
Well, I mean, they wouldn't be bringing him back. They want to bring him back and put him on the practice squad. They would not be doing that if they didn't like him. But just remember, and I say this, I've said this probably 8 million times, and I hate repeating myself, and I apologize, but what we see in preseason games is about 2% of what they base their evaluation on. They're with these people in meetings every day, in practices for hours every day. They have a very good feel for what they can do, and what they do against fourth-string cornerbacks in a preseason game is just not that big a part of the evaluation.
Is Brett Rippon the third-string guy, or is he in competition with Mullins? He's third.
He's a third-string guy, yeah.
Okay, and that's pretty clear, even though he's had some experience?
Yeah, listen, Mullins is a smart guy. He understands the offense. He can run the offense. He can put up big numbers. He just makes too many mistakes, and he doesn't have the arm talent to pull off some of the plays he tries to make. But, listen, he's not ideal, but how many people have ideal backup quarterbacks? It's just there are only so many good quarterbacks to go around in the entire world. So your backup quarterback is not going to be an ideal player.
Jim, what do you think about Kenny Nwangwu going to the Saints?
I thought he failed his physical, so I'm not sure
did he?
He's actually with the Saints.
Okay.
I haven't seen an update today. The last thing I saw yesterday was that he had failed a physical, or there was some question about his physical.
Okay.
He's a talented guy, but it's kind of a red flag that this team doesn't have a kick returner, and they didn't want him on the roster. I mean, that's a pretty clear evaluation of his skills.
All right, Jim, what do you got on your podcast?
Pretty much everything's up now. Chin Music with Roy and Lavelle, a good one on the Twins and what they need to do. Jeff Diamond's Vikings and NFL Insiders out. Don Mitchell's show, which has been great. Randy Shaver on high school football. Michael Russo, Kevin Gorg on hockey. Anthony LaPanta on hockey. The Viking Update show. John Millay on preps. Everything's at talknorth.com or on your favorite podcast app.
All right, Jim, have a good weekend. We'll talk to you again on Tuesday.
Great. Thank you, Jay. That's
Jim Souhan, Star Tribune sports columnist, joining us every weekday morning at this time. Follow him on Twitter at SouhanStrib. Check out his latest column in the Star Tribune or his podcasts at talknorth.com. Jim, once again today, brought to you by the Green Mill in downtown St. Cloud. Dream Getaway 80. First code word of the day is WAVE. W-A-V-E. WAVE. Type that in. You could win a vacation of a lifetime. All the codes on Monday and Labor Day are going to be app only at 7:28, 10:20, and 12:28, and then, of course, at 3 o'clock. News from ABC Next.